It's Spoilerin time. This is a show that is the progeny of Cordkillers. On Cordkillers, we talk about how to do stuff, what services, what stuff's coming out. Should we watch it? Then when we watch it, we talk about it here. This week, we'll be spoiling Hannibal, episode 8 of season 1, WandaVision, the first 2 episodes of the series, and The Stand on CBS All Access, episode 5. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Yes, and you're welcome, because the original title of this program was Pillow Talk with Tom and Brian, which, by the way, I'm planning to rename Postcoital Bliss with my wife and call it Spoilerin time. Joining
it will
us
be
as
if
always,
you name it that.
Our producer, Bryce Castillo. Where do you guys want to begin?
We have no idea. Let's start with The Stand, episode 5 of season 1. Fear and Loathing in New Vegas. Spin on the old Hunter Thompson title. This time we find ourselves mostly in New Vegas, which we have not been in Randall Flagg's territory very much, just brief flashes. And now we get the full throttle. We find that one of our spies has gotten a job doing some welding and somehow parlays that into getting called up into the big leagues so she can hang out in the first 3 floors of a luxury hotel. The person with the developmental disability is on the cleanup crew, and she recognizes him. Remember, they didn't know who else was being sent, so that becomes a problem. And our third spy, we don't know. And in fact,
we did find out.
Spy,
they said that she was waiting just outside of town.
Yeah, coming in.
I mean, we didn't see her.
Oh, right. We know, but Randall doesn't know.
Actually,
he said it.
He does. He says, like, when he corners Dana.
Yeah,
but he doesn't know who she is.
Right.
Work with me.
Okay.
Because there was something there, right?
You're mostly right, Tom.
Yes, Tom.
but wait, I'm not totally confused, because you're right. He does say and the third one sneaking outside of town, but he's like, who is the?
He doesn't know
right.
Tom.
He knows
doesn't know Tom
that one and her, but he doesn't know about Tom.
Right. And to be honest,
okay.
I think the reason that Bryce and I noticed it so much is because it very clearly was like written into the script. Cause the people at home to not care about the third spy. Like make it clear that she's not part of the story. There's a spy we know, and then there's Tom Cullen.
Right, and Tom Cullen is the one that Randall he can't figure him out.
Yeah.
He can't see him, and it's his developmental situation that probably keeps him from being able to see him.
Before we start sullying everything, like Bryce is the only one who is pristine. I will spoil this much.
Okay.
I was waiting for the moment that's in the book where he literally says, I don't know who that third spy is. Every time I try to see him, all I can picture is the moon.
That would have been fine.
Been painful, or
no?
good?
I think that would have been fine.
Okay.
In fact, I think it would give more credence, because I can tell that he's, whenever Tom spells out something, it's whatever the actual MOON. Yeah. He even did it with run, MOO. And I was like, oh, I guess that's a thing that's just a part of kind of his tics or his habits. I thought this was fine. I'm really like settled into, okay, this is just like, here's what the Christian heaven looked like, and it's a lot of people living in suburbia, and here's what hell looks like, and it's people in Las Vegas with chainsaws. I'm settling into we're doing very traditional good v evil stakes here on this.
And which would you rather live in, Bryce?
If it didn't have the chainsaws and the slave pits, I mean, Las Vegas would be cool. But
right.
And that's something that they've been a bit light on in this version of the telling. In the book, it's a little bit more about like, hey, man, say what you will about his, good people killing policy, but I like the fact that the trains run on time. Like, there's sort of a practicality. It's like, I like being told what to do. I like knowing where I'm supposed to go. And I like the fact that the lights are on and I feel safe. It's a bit more nuanced than they're able to tell in this version of it.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like they shifted one of the things that was, if I remember right, and Brian, you know the book better, but I remember having the impression that Boulder was the place where you could think for yourself. New Vegas was not. And the TV show sort of implied that New Vegas was the freedom place where you could think for yourself.
Yeah, although in the book they do, have like they told you these things are bad. I'm telling you they're good, and you've earned this or whatever. I did like. I'm almost certain that in the book they have that representation of heaven. Basically, all the carnal desires you like. In the book, I'm turning into that guy. I apologize, but it's like a last minute decision when Dana realizes that like he bangs her up against the wall, cracks the window or whatever, and she realizes, oh crap, he doesn't know about Tom Cullen, and then thrusts her neck down onto the side window on there. I thought it was a fine enough approximation of that. Yeah. And I'm certain there was probably some kind of snooping around what's his name? Long-haired dork, looks like me.
Not Hector. What's his name?
Might as well be Hector.
Harold.
Harold. Thank you.
No, he doesn't look like you.
Yeah, no, I'm much more older. That all felt transparently like a fake out because I knew they. Sorry, I'm gonna stop talking. I'm getting into books.
Well, okay. So where you went? We went from New Vegas. If anybody lost track, we went from New Vegas, and we're talking about Harold coming over for dinner at Franny's, right?
Yeah. Yep. And Stu's
and Franny sending Larry
Underwood
to go sneak around in Harold's house and see if he can find anything.
Yeah, they did a little bit of a nod to Misery in that moment. In the movie Misery with James Caan, he is an author who is held captive to write a sequel to a book to fix what was wrong with, by a psycho fan. And there's some moment, the exact scene happens where he clutters something and he makes the mistake of setting a penguin, not looking due south the way she always likes it. In this case, they did it with... chess pieces. However, that was kind of undone by the fact that he had surveillance all over his house. So it's like, what was the point of all of that? If
he had surveillance? I thought he only had surveillance on Franny's house.
No, they definitely show him right next to the Franny surveillance, watching the replay of Larry Underwood running around his house. And it's like,
well, then the chess piece serves to show that Harold is detail oriented.
He understands it happened and he's not freaking out about it. It's not a surprise to him.
And that he is I don't mean detail oriented like he'd be a great employee. I mean, like, you can't push one past him because he's observant.
Be pretty good at editing.
Right. Yeah, and so it's less about like, this is the way he knew, which is, you're right, undermined by the surveillance, but it's more about like, he doesn't miss a trick. You move that chess piece, he's gonna notice. But you're right, Bryce. It also shows like, and he wasn't freaked out because he kind of knew this was going on because he's the surveillance master, even to the point of having it in a stuffed animal that he goes up and looks at weirdly.
Also, out of nowhere. I mean, I don't put it above his character, but it's definitely just, I also have a surveillance network.
That also seems like the kind of thing.
Well, because he wants to spy on Franny. That's not out of nowhere. That makes perfect sense because he's obsessed with her. The rest of it is just paranoia about himself, because I assume everything else is inside his own house, but I didn't pay a close enough attention.
Maybe.
E. Clay Thompson's asking how he's surveilling across town with no internet. You go get yourself a bunch of Eros. You set up a mesh network. It's fine. Whatever.
Oh, easy. Yeah, you could just do a point-to-point broadcast.
Yeah.
And nobody probably would notice when there's no internet to worry about.
Yeah, 5G.
Yeah, you could do direct Wi-Fi. There's tons of ways you could do it.
So,
in fact, it's a little easier, to be honest, because you don't have all that interference.
Step up or step down from what we've seen leading up to this moment. I suspected, I rather liked some amount of the New Vegas stuff. And I remember thinking like, well, I bet Bryce thinks this is more interesting than what we've seen before.
Yeah.
Man, I really didn't care for the Mother Abigail. I don't care for Whoopi Goldberg's performance. It all seems so phoned in. I don't like it at all.
I still don't. I think I said this last week, but I don't know what her power is.
So far is to show up in a dream.
Yeah.
That's it.
She sees a wolf and then she disappears at the end of the episode. Like, okay. She's fine. I don't know. She's fine. She's fine. It's fine. I like this episode more than previous episodes because there weren't any time jumps in it. I did feel like, okay,
we've kind of caught up.
We're really getting steady on that.
So you did not care for the time jumps, full stop?
Not particularly. Not really. I'd rather just be in the moment of the story instead of being like, let's go back and illustrate exactly in just the right time this one thing we're trying to set up. And like, I don't know, I'm an attentive viewer, so I feel like if you had just shown it to me chronologically, I think I said this last week, if you showed it to me chronologically, then I'd feel more of the setup of this. Like, I didn't even realize the female spy who we've watched in New Vegas was the same woman from that truck stop vignette.
Oh,
I didn't
that's
even
right. Yeah.
realize that. And they did that with the flashback, and I feel like if we didn't even see that flashback back then, that little cutaway would have been just perfect to like.
Would have been everything you needed.
Yeah.
Because I'd forgotten that was her as well. I remember when they first showed her in the village in Boulder, I was like, oh, there's that other girl. I wonder if she'll be important. And then when they brought her in as a spy, I'd already forgotten.
Yeah.
It's so tough because I was talking today to somebody who's read the book and only watched the first episode and hated it or stopped watching because of the time jumps. And I'm like, I think it's a gift. I think it's like, if you've read the book and you'd like a few pictures to go along with the book, it's a fine way to spend, building those pictures in your mind.
I guess where I'm at so far on this whole series is I like it enough to really actually be and find it enjoyable to watch. I don't look at it as work. I'm like, oh, okay, we can watch The Stand now because these are great performances and good production values. It definitely keeps the Stephen King aura, which not all Stephen King adaptations do. I find myself feeling like I saw something Stephen King-y when I watched it, but I also don't rave about it. I don't say like, oh my gosh, they totally captured The Stand and everything I felt when I was watching it. It feels like a different story in some ways.
You know what? It feels like a quiet, self-indulgent pleasure that I get confused when I ask myself the question of, would I recommend this to anyone? And having read the book and enjoying all the pictures that now go along with the book, imagine being handed a book that was labeled The Art of the Dark Tower, and you've never read The Dark Tower. Would you recommend that book to somebody? I don't know. I mean, they're pretty pictures. Yeah. They're pretty
Wouldn't
good.
You want to say like, you really should read The Dark Tower first, because that's the better part. And if you're only going to pick one, read The Dark Tower. Don't just look at the
or at least if you have read the book, then by all means look at these amazing illustrations.
But it's not like you have to see it.
Yeah.
Right. Or
that's a good way to put it.
If you did that, right, like that would, in the analogy, that's a totally different format. So at least for the format, it also has to be good on its own, right? And so I think of some of the little nitpicks I've got about this show so far, and I think, well, you have to make it for all of the people who are going to watch it, not just the people who have read the book.
So little trivia tidbit. I think in one of the early reviews for the first couple of episodes, somebody compared and contrasted the 1990s Stand to this one and said at least they didn't go over the top with that ridiculous introduction from the 1990s where they played Blue Oyster Cult's Don't Fear the Reaper. Guess what this episode ends with?
Yeah. In this series, they end an episode with Don't Fear the Reaper, which is a great song.
Is that the wolf? Is the wolf supposed to be the reaper? Or is it just all the various well, I guess you guys.
Oh, I think it's just, hey, this song is a mood, and
big mood.
It's the mood we ended on.
Yeah.
So at this point, Bryce, do you feel any moments of tension or characters that you actually care about?
Yeah. I thought that the espionage stuff in New Vegas was good. I feel like the way that I wish I knew her name, but the way that the female spy goes out. Lena.
Dana with Y.
Dana Y. Lena. Sets up some really good tension for Tom and seeing if he fulfills his mission as well. And then Randall, I guess I kind of feel a bit for Randall more so than the Franny or Teddy from Westworld. Because he feels conflict. I feel like he feels conflict.
Harold, you said Randall, who's the antagonist.
Yes. Excuse me. I mean Harold, the guy.
By the way, none of these great signs about the storytelling.
I'm not good with names.
It's fine.
I maybe just watched this 12 hours ago. I feel I think I'm supposed to feel a little bit for him because of some conflict over whether he actually does want to work for Flagg or not. Same for Nadine, right?
Yeah, nailed that one.
IMDb right on the side, because of her kind of conflict with Underwood and wanting to.
Oh yeah, what did you think of that moment where she threw herself at Larry Underwood? Like, please, will you please have sex with me so I could be impure and not have to go to the Dark Man's place?
I thought it was a good emotional scene. I thought that was like really filled with a lot of complexity to it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It was.
What do you think is going to happen next?
Me? I bet Whoopi Goldberg turns up dead. She either turns up dead or she never dies for the rest of the story, would be my guess. And then Tom Cullen like just barely makes it out of New Vegas, but then he attracts them to Colorado, and then a big gunfight or something. Would be my guess.
All right. Yeah.
I'm thinking.
One of the
I
things
think
I most enjoy talking
Vegas
about with shows is what I think is going to happen in the next episode, like we do with Hannibal. With this one, not as fun.
You guys have read the book.
I've not said anything to this point for fear of spoiling, but at this point, episode 5, I mean, unless they're going to throw us a hard curveball on episode 6, like there's an entire character who is the literal lightning rod around which the finale of the whole story turns.
Oh,
that is not in the show.
Wow.
There are 3 more episodes left, and then a coda.
A coda. Oh, is it because this is a mini series? This is not like a.
So there's episode 6, 7, 8, and then episode 9 is called Coda.
Huh.
To avoid spoiling anything, I'll just say his name, which sounds like it's going to be a spoiler. It's not.
It's Zeus.
But it's so weird to me that there's just no trash can man in this version of The Stand.
All right. Anything else on The Stand?
No.
Episode 5, season 1. Let's talk about the first 2 episodes of WandaVision. First episode, almost entirely Dick Van Dyke, with a couple of really interesting side notes. Episode 2, very much more like a Bewitched or I Dream of Jeannie, with a few more of the rest of the world intruding. I, just for full disclosure, have seen episode 3. I don't think it tells you too much more than what you're getting in episodes 1 and 2, but I will recuse myself from wondering what's going to happen in the next episode because of that. But what did you guys think of the first 2 so far?
Well, and to soften the blow of that, the end of episode 2 looked to me like, you know, by the transition to a new type of character storytelling and the sudden existence of color or whatever, like I speculated immediately out loud that, it seems like they're going to, you know, continue to do TV tropes as, you know, through various decades or whatever. I'm just going to assume I'm right.
And what I think is fair to say on the first 2 is you start entirely TV trope. You get the choking scene that's a little weird, and you get the guy at the end with the remote.
The beekeeper guy who came out of the sewer.
Beekeeper is at the end of episode 2, right?
Yes.
Episode 1, you only get like a couple of tiny things. Episode 2, you have the helicopter, you have the radio. So I feel like what we're doing is each episode takes us forward in TV history, but gets more mixed with the context in which all of this is happening.
Yeah, there's a version of this where they never bother to make capable versions of all of the covers that they're doing. Like similarly, like it's like, look, man, if you're doing a one-off bat mitzvah and your job is to play the greatest hits of the late 90s, early aughts, you don't really have to be good. You just have to show up on time, do the thing, and then get out and take the paycheck. They could have done that on this. The fact that they bothered to do really good covers that indicate that they appreciate what's great about each individual, like somebody who loves the Dick Van Dyke Show, somebody who loves Bewitched can watch these and say, I'm so thankful that there's somebody out there that gets what's great about these shows.
Oh man, I'm as far as that goes, I'm adoring catching the references and going like, oh, because Vision wouldn't stumble on the couch like Dick Van Dyke does, stuff like that. Even just not necessarily direct references, but this is the kind of thing they did. This is the kind of joke they made. This is the kind of reaction you would get. I'm loving all that. I know some other people are like, I'm a fan of this era, and I think these are lame. I don't think they're full of very good references, and the references that are there are obvious. So there's some split opinions out there about it, but I'm enjoying it quite a lot.
What's funny is I don't care for any one specific reference. As a matter of fact, I only after the fact found out what specific shows they were referencing. But I know I can smell that those three chords coming a mile away.
Oh, yeah.
The moment
style
two characters pick up a phone,
right?
and then it's like, oh, they're going to do the thing where they talk across purposes and they end up getting the wrong impression. And it's like, yes to all of this. It was great.
Apparently that first episode they filmed with a actual live studio audience.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which fits very well. And then, when we talked about it in Weird Things, I didn't even realize that, episode 2 is really not set totally in a studio space like episode 1 is, right? They go outside and you see exterior shots and the scene with the pagoda, and apparently
because we're following TV history here, right? Earlier TV shows were all, single studio, 3-camera shoot, and then later you see Derek and you're. Am I getting it right? Anyway, you see the Bewitched cast do some exterior shots. We are following TV history here. And even the quality of the black and white changed in episode 2. I don't know if you noticed that, but it got softer. It got a little higher res.
Yeah, it took me about 5 or 10 minutes in before I even realized that it was a totally different set from episode 1 to episode 2.
Yeah. I did notice that the chair or the couch that they sat on at the end of the show was different, because I don't know, for whatever reason, that episode 1 was this weird half circle thing. Anyway, that doesn't matter. But little things like that. Like, I kind of love the idea of I almost don't want them to keep going into the further years. It's like, no, keep doing a weird black and white sitcom throwback and change the studio every time, or little things like that, because that stuff was really good. And I think if I can maybe air what I don't know what the mystery is on this show, but I don't think it's going to surprise me. I'm afraid that it's just, I think.
Well, I mean, you could say
if you don't know what it is, how is it not going to surprise you?
She's a brain in a vat, and
she's gonna be in a tube or stuck in a crystal.
I don't think she's in a tube. Okay. First of all, let's try to delineate some of the clues.
Sure.
The commercials may or may not be clues. Commercial in the first, because they have the same characters each time. The commercial in the first was for a
toaster.
Stark Enterprises toaster with a ominous
with the
red
only
bead.
red,
yeah. The commercial in episode 2 was the Strucker watch, which Strucker is the person who experimented on Scarlet Witch, and it had the Hydra logo on it, right? So I feel like whoever's doing this to Wanda, which is what the radio says, who's doing this to you, that's definitely Randall Park's voice, by the way. So the guy from Ant-Man, fresh off the boat, he's somehow involved. The guy who's doing it to her is probably the guy and the girl in the commercials, would be my guess. And somehow Scarlet Witch is being trapped in her own illusions, right?
Yeah, probably. But can we...
But also she has some sort of power, because she does that rewind thing after she sees the beekeeper.
Well, specifically, it breaks the illusion. It's so far out that she recoils and says the word no. And then we see it go back. We're like, okay, how about this? You're like, yes. And I can accept that. So,
and then we also get Monica, the little girl from Captain Marvel, who's now grown up. The woman playing her in episode 2 is the woman who will play grown-up version of Monica in the next Captain Marvel movie. And that's not, a suspicion. That's all confirmed. Is she shows up as Geraldine in episode 2.
Sorry, who's Geraldine?
Oh, Tiona.
She's the
Paris?
woman who helps her with the magic. And
she's fantastic. Yes.
Yeah. Tiona Paris.
So to me, it's a stunt. And the longer they keep playing with the straight face, the happier I get. And I was really impressed that they lasted 2 full episodes of pretty much playing it straight. Yes, they showed us the phrase at the edges. Part of me is kind of sad to know that we're eventually going to have to become a Marvel movie. But for right now, I'm extremely happy.
I'm really fascinated in trying to predict what that thing is. You guys seem to be like, yeah, whatever it is, it's not going to surprise me, and I'll be sad when it comes. I'm enjoying the TV.
Oh, is that how I am?
That's how I am.
I combined both of you. Yeah.
I mean, it's not that I know exactly what it is, but I feel like it would be great if the show could surprise me. I'm just keeping my expectations low because I think she's hooked up to a machine, or she's in a vat, or it's a crystal, or she's done some big.
Or it's
I don't know. I think there's more to it than that, simply because she does have some control over it. But I don't know.
So
there's obviously some grief to this too,
right?
Because Vision is dead in Avengers Endgame,
right?
And we think this is kicking off Phase 4, so we think this is happening after he's dead. So, is that in fact Vision, or just her recreation of Vision? Is there some computer programming that can be used? Also, a few people have pointed out that one of Scarlet Witch's visions from the comics, and I'm not familiar enough to remember it off the top of my head, has a name that is similar to Agnes. I think it's Angela Harkness or something, and that Agnes is wearing the same jewelry that villain wears in the comics. So we may have her villain in the scenario with her.
If I was going to guess, I would say that we are in some kind of simulation or manufactured reality or whatever. And what we fear is that Vision will turn out to be only in her mind. And our surprise will be that we are introduced to, simply by virtue of being imagined, he does exist. And there's some version where Wanda is reunited with, a version of Vision.
Also, the helicopter had a sword symbol on it, which might be the first reference to sword versus shield.
Oh.
So the agents of sword may be the ones trying to get to her.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that one.
Sword is the successor agency of shield after shield gets inhabited by Hydra.
I assumed that was the bad guys.
Shield's there to fight a sword.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, sword is a good guy agency.
No, but I'm saying I would have assumed.
I'm with Bryce. Bryce's logic holds sound.
Who's the bad guys in G.I. Joe? It would be that kind of relationship between them.
Any other thoughts on WandaVision?
Nope. Loving it. Electrified by every second. As far as I'm concerned, every episode could be exactly like the first two, and I'll be happy forever and ever and ever.
All right. That is episodes 1 and 2 of WandaVision. Let's talk about Hannibal, episode 8, season 1, Squad Goals. I'm sorry, it's called Fromage. But Lecter's patient, the guy from Fantastic Beasts, thinks his friend might be a psychopath. And guess what? He is. And then we have an uncomfortable dance where Hannibal and Tobias admit that they really would love to kill each other, but they're not gonna. Not this time. Or will they?
About 2/3 of the way through this, I thought I was really gonna be bummed by this episode, because I was like, oh man, they're teasing a better world. I love this idea that two supervillains are going to dance with each other. And it's like, oh my God, imagine if they just full on attacked each other, kung fu in the whole 9 yards. Mm-hmm. And then I immediately thought that will never, ever happen, because I've seen the style guide of everything that we've seen up until then. The way it works is that all killings happen off screen. It was lucky that we even saw the one killing by Hannibal, full stop. And then, spoiler alerts, they full on kung fu each other in a big ass fight sequence. It was amazing.
Hannibal wrote his death warrant, or I'm sorry, Tobias wrote his death warrant when he told Hannibal he had followed him, and Hannibal realized that he didn't know that. And suddenly Tobias became a threat that needed to be eliminated.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I was a bit bummed about the patient dying, because I thought he was so sycophantic and awful and gross and such a lick spittle that I kind of wanted him to be around just for me to kick like Salacious Crumb or something. Seeing him exit, although Tobias wasn't interesting, the idea that well, what else can you do with the body besides eat it? I don't know, play music on it, whatever. Fine, that's fine. Different flavor of superpower. And then, but yeah, I don't know. I dug it.
Oh, I thought the the playing someone's vocal cords like a violin was pretty creative. I admired that aspect of this story.
I believe you can play, or I believe you can eat a human. I do not believe that you can play a cello top.
I have no idea whether you can or not, but the in-universe explanation of like, hey, you can treat catgut with this stuff. We could treat a human larynx with this stuff. I imagine it wouldn't sound as good, but in the mind of a psychopath, maybe that's not all that matters.
I did like that moment where Hannibal's talking to his shrink and says he thinks he found a friend, and we all think it's the other psychopath killer, and it turns out it's Will. I thought that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that too, because I really did think it was Tobias as well. Also, this may be a naive question from someone who hasn't read any of these books, but is Dr. Bedelia du Maurier real, or did he kill her?
I mean, also, is she a practicing serial killer herself? And here's what I do know is I made the mistake
because they talk about her being attacked by a patient. And it very clearly seems to want you to believe that Hannibal was that patient.
So I believe, and this would be spoiler free, she is an original creation and not in Thomas Harris's original novels.
Okay, good. So we can speculate all we want. It won't be contradicted by the novels.
Somewhat spoilery is she's in an awful lot of episodes per IMDb. So she's not going anywhere.
She could be that actually would lend itself to her being imaginary just as much as being real, is that he could talk to her whenever he wants if she's imaginary, so she could be in more episodes.
You think that would be...
Oh, that'd be wild to see her like out of that context. Like all of a sudden we're in a public scene and then she's whispering in his ear like Six from Battlestar Galactica.
Because here's my working theory, and I'm not even trying to claim this is right, but I'm testing to see if this theory fits the facts. That he did have Dr. Bedelia du Maurier as his clinician. He killed her, and he feels this is one of the few killings he's ever felt even the tiniest bit of remorse. So he consults with her still when he needs to.
And
he
does. He even says, like, "What about when you were attacked? And have you ever thought about going back? Doggone it, that is pretty on the nose."
It would feel, I don't know. I do think it would be a little out of place. I think a lot of the show is meant to have Will's perspective, even when he's not, in a given scene.
Right. That's why it's called Will. Oh, I'm sorry. It's called Hannibal.
Speaking of which, if I can nudge us a little bit over, how were we sitting with Will's kind of erratic, wild behavior on this one?
Yeah, I'm a little. Maybe you guys can help me understand that, because I get it that he's not. We've known from the beginning he's not all right, but right. I'm not quite sure where that's going.
I don't know either. Right? I mean,
it was so swervy that I was convinced it was a dream sequence, and then it turned out not to be. And so
and he's having hallucinations, right? He's hearing things that seem to just not be happening, right? The dog. When they're talking to the string guy and the squirrel in his house.
Also, anytime I have broken a hole in my fireplace in order to find imaginary stuck raccoons, I haven't ended up making out with the girl.
Yeah,
just
boldly,
very out of left field.
Also, as long as we're throwing curveballs here, am I the only one who's obsessed with every time you see a dog like watching where the dog is watching as it's paying attention to its trainer holding up a treat?
And a lot of dogs too.
I know, right?
When did he get all those dogs?
Oh, no. They introduced that early on.
Oh, okay. They introduced that he had them, but I still don't know where.
How many dogs?
Yeah. Also, knew it was imaginary immediately when the dogs didn't bark at the raccoon. I was like, those dogs are just sitting there. There's nothing in that fireplace. One of those dogs would at least be up and probably barking at it.
I wonder what the hallucinations are supposed to be, whether they're just the damage from him, doing this very strenuous, empathetic work with the FBI, or if it's meant to be a symbol of something he's chasing, right? Which is supposedly Hannibal himself.
Yeah. I mean, it's very clearly something he can't save but wants to.
Mm-hmm. But then the wolf, he did...
right.
He did imagine a wolf cry, but they were looking for what sounded like a dead wolf or wolf remains. So
is the wolf Hannibal?
Yeah. Oh yeah. All those animals he's imagining are Hannibal, I think.
Yeah. And so it's his subconscious trying to tell him what's going on with his new best friend.
Yeah. And this week,
maybe that's it.
I feel like Hannibal injecting himself so much into, Tobias's, Franklin and Tobias's story just gets us closer and closer to the tipping point where Hannibal is just a little too conveniently close to a big gruesome murder. I'm excited for it. I'm excited for it, but it's very that's very dumb for a very smart guy.
That was one of the fun parts about the end battle was sort of judging the tipping point, at which point, there came a point where all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, he's going to have to cop to this murder. Yeah. He's going to have to cop to this killing, or like that knee injury doesn't go away unnoticed or whatever. And the mere fact that this show has checkmated me to that level of unsureness was really fun.
I'm not quite sure I 100% followed, but I love the genius of him getting Tobias down and then carefully picking up the bust with a cloth, not because he's trying to hide that he did it, but he wants to make it look less intentional, I think, is the idea, because he goes and he kills Tobias with it, dusts off his hand, and then knocks over where the bust came from. I assume to make it look like, oh, this was just, nearer to hand in the battle, and it was all I had, and in the heat of the moment I picked it up, rather than I walked over and picked it up and then hit him over the head.
Well, and he uses his handkerchief, which makes me think that he's trying to hide his fingerprints, but why would he do that?
Yeah, that I'm a little unclear on that myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he snapped Franklin's neck, and he didn't really see. It didn't even seem like he was accounting. It seemed like he was trying to make accounting for Franklin and all, but maybe, I don't know. It did seem weird.
Yeah, because the allegation was that Tobias killed Franklin, and then they got in a fight, and Hannibal had to kill Tobias or in self-defense.
Yeah, it definitely felt like they were about to set up a counterfactual, but then they didn't. Instead, he exactly described, give or take, exactly what happened.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's the mistake.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
and
his slip up.
The change of motivation of like, oh no, I didn't kill Tobias to keep him from exposing me. I killed him because he was coming at me.
Bryce just introduced something I hadn't really thought of. Like, we know eventually Hannibal goes to jail, and yet I've been treating this whole series as he's immortal, he's a demigod, he can kill anyone anytime, he can mind control anyone at any time, and is constantly serving up dinners. But we also know for a fact that at some point he gets caught for something.
And he's known as Hannibal the Cannibal.
Yep.
So it's not Hannibal, the guy who hit Tobias over the head with a bust.
Yeah.
So he's going to get busted for eating people.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. This show's great. I'm really
what I love is that we
expect you to come around full circle on this.
I've always liked the show.
But the show has ended up being so much what you said I don't tend to like. And then
I love mysteries and
you began, and forgive me if I'm wrong on this, singing the praises of the fact that it was procedural and nothing was related and it wasn't a big overarching thing, and it's become a big overarching thing where it's not procedural at all. So
I like that it inflated my expectations, but I like murder mysteries. I like the Hannibal Lecter verse.
I definitely have turned about on this. I wasn't sure I liked it at the beginning, and now I'm definitely caught up in okay, so we're going to see Hannibal skate closer and closer to the line and see how close he can get before he finally gets caught. And when will that be? Digging it.
Yeah.
I find it a tasty treat when I'm watching TV.
A nice picante.
Yes, salsa picante for my television watching. That's it. Any other thoughts on Hannibal?
No.
That's Hannibal, episode 8, season 1. Thank you, everybody, for supporting the show. If you're a patron, you get these episodes earlier. So become a patron if you're not one already. Patreon.com/Cordkillers. Next week, more of The Stand, WandaVision, and Hannibal. Talk to you then.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.